paddock or back at home watching live, welcome to the IAME Grand Nationals, the fourth running of this event here at Trackhouse Motorplex. You're joining us live here for the final bit of warm-up for the X30 Pro Senior drivers before we get ready to go. Heat racing action, for those of you who don't know, new layout today here, Jerry. Yesterday in heat number 1, we ran the normal Trackhouse Motorplex layout, but for today, we have a new layout, similar to what we saw last year, where instead of the normal turn 1 actually becomes turn number 7. We'll go over the track more when these X30 Pros begin to hit the racetrack here, and as I say that, there's Dalton Haynes leading now on the racetrack here. PSLA Kart and Sody Kart machine, turn line there as well. Anacondas making his probably one of them starting the go-kart like he tends to do for their track. Myself, Alexander Soul, Jerry Faindry in the booth alongside me here. Jerry, what did we see yesterday, and what do you think we can expect today, especially with the new layout?
Yeah, Alex. So yesterday we've seen a lot of great racing, and with the normal layout we're running here at Trackhouse, it's more high speed, a lot more draft involved. But talking a little bit about this layout today, Alex, it's a lot tighter, definitely more technical. As there's a lot more sharper, tighter corners. The drivers last night, changed the gear, changed the setup over to what they practiced on, I believe, Thursday. And different layout here today. Definitely going to be a lot more technical.
Yeah, this is unlike what we saw maybe yesterday at the shootout layout, where really you only get 5 minutes to go out there and test. They had 3 sessions of this on Thursday to begin the day from practice 1 through 3. So they haven't driven it obviously since Thursday, but most of these drivers within the first lap or 2, maybe 3 at most, you get acclimated to it all. You have your data, you have all your setup usually written down. The track has evolved slightly, but with this layout difference, right, we don't really drive through turns 1 and 2 yesterday, so there isn't any added rubber in this part of the racetrack, but there is a black line forming. That was there from Thursday. Then this part of the racetrack, we drive this section actually. This is all normal, and then when we come through, we're doing basically the same exact turn 9 and 10, but we do the cut through right here, which only gets driven on, occasionally throughout the year, if that, club stuff, mainly just for the African Nationals. Now we go back to turn number 1. This part we all know. Up the hill through 2 and 3. Don't listen back to see, any drivers around him. He probably doesn't want any drivers to get the data off of him, obviously. Yeah. But with this being a layout that we have been, accustomed to seeing in previous generations of this event, it should be one of those where most of these drivers are going to be on pace pretty quickly. So far, 1 lap of the Dalton Haynes tops the board. Behind him, it's last night's KA100 Senior Shootout winner, Paulie Massimino, who's actually won the X30 shootout before back in 2021, so he's the first one to ever win both shootouts in X30 and KA at some point in the last 4 years. So congratulations to Paulie Massimino, $4,000 richer. And tonight, obviously, he's going to hopefully take the lead.
Yeah, yesterday we seen Paulie in, I believe, the X30 heat have a little bit of a mishap out of the last corner. I believe he told me his reeds actually went bad out of the last corner. And so yeah, those of you watching yesterday who didn't exactly know the intel there, reeds going out for Paulie out of that last corner in that X30 heat. But props to him for winning that shootout last night and getting a good 4K right into that pocket, Alex.
Well, let's talk about that heat race, right? Because I think there was action all throughout that event. We saw Hayden Jones walk away with an impressive Heat 1 victory, but it was one of those where we saw Paulie, we saw Dalton kind of leading the way for most of that race. Hayden Jones actually got shuffled back early on in that heat race himself and his teammate Ryan Norberg as well. Norberg finished down there in 7th, couldn't do what Hayden did in the final couple of laps, where, I actually spoke to Dalton after the event, and he said that Hayden's one of the first drivers he's ever seen go around the outside of turn 9 and 10 and then make it stick through 11 and 12 as well. And obviously with the assistance of Massimino's reeds blowing through 11 and 12, he held up Dalton the inside lane, and Hayden's going to go around the outside and do one of the most impressive moves that I've seen in quite some time. We saw Carter McMurray do it, I think last year at this exact same event as well. So it's a move that can be done, but it's pretty risky with the barriers on the outside. Hayden Jones made it work. He was your Heat 1 winner. Further back, we saw Haynes finish 2nd. Carr, he didn't feel that confident in that TKG Kart public. We see him right behind fast Frankie Mossman as well, who's actually replacing Austin Garrison this weekend for the Speed Concepts Racing Carlos Sainz machine. But for Brandon Kart, through Thursday and even Friday morning, Didn't feel all too confident in that go-kart. It came back to him in that heat race there as well, so very impressive for him. Jacob Kolar, a driver that doesn't get in the national seats very often. He does a lot of racing down there in Homestead for the club racing, does some SSKC stuff, works a lot with that team down there in Homestead, but doesn't really do national events. He does SCUSA more often than not, does the Orlando events, but every time he comes out in the Grand Nationals, he decides to show up back in the go-kart. Finished third in that one as well. So, sorry, that's this morning. But in the heat race as well, he was also very, very impressive there, finishing down in 9th for car. Third, McMurray, hometown kid, usually a junior racer. He's done some X30 racing here at Homestead, or at Trackhouse Motorplex, sorry. He made his debut X30 Pro start at MCC for the United States Pro Kart Series. We saw how impressive he was. He had a great qualifying at the top 6. Got shuffled back in the heat races, but I will say, we spoke to him yesterday. He seems a lot more confident now, right? He has acclimated to the drivers around him. He knows how they all race compared to what he sees in junior, and so that's why he was able to get his elbows out and finish 4th in that heat race.
Yeah, I mean, he was really impressive. We got to see him at MCC. I was expecting a little bit around that, 7th to 10th range, Alex, but, he was able to, slowly work his way into that top 5. But, yeah, it definitely tough, moving up your first time, into the pro class. And, we talked to him a little bit, and he was like, yeah, these drivers and seniors, they don't make as many mistakes. And, they're definitely really, I think he said they were a lot more consistent, lap time-wise, compared to juniors, where he said the juniors kind of made a couple mistakes here and there. But he was like, up here in the top class, they don't make mistakes.
Exactly. We've heard him say it. We've heard Eli Warren mention it as well back when he made his pro debut over in Dousman. So it seems to be the common trend when drivers move up to this X30 Pro category. The biggest difference is not really the actual driving style. It's just the consistency of just how many laps they have over the course of their career in go-karting. So over 3.5 minutes left in this warm-up session. Long warm-up sessions here. Nonetheless, Justin Ataconis, BJR MDR driver there. Again, make it his probably one-off race. Maybe he'll go back to Supernats like he did last year, but unlike last year, he's actually in the seat more often. He's actually doing the Spec MX5 Challenge Series. 1 round left. It's the SCCA runoffs at Road America. He needs the points heading into that one here. So, nonetheless, doesn't do a lot of go-kart driving, but this is a track that he's known and loved and grown up at. So, a track that he's become pretty accustomed to throughout his karting career. That's why he's topped the board so far. Dalton Haynes as well. Kolar 3rd and very impressive. Norberg, Jones, Carr, McMurray, Mossman, Wolney, and Paulie Massimino 1st through 10th right now. Warm up 1.5 tenths separating those top 10 drivers. Really all the way down to 20th is only a second. So especially with this tighter layout, I think it makes it, I don't want it simpler because it is a more technical style layout, but we had the testing on Thursday. This layout's going to bring a lot of drivers into the mix who maybe weren't comfortable in the other layout. On this one with more similar passing opportunities, but interesting passing opportunities, I'd say.
Yeah, and something else to mention, Alex, is, a lot of the locals here, we talk Dalton Haynes, we talk Ataconis, and Jones, they don't really have a lot of seat time around this exact layout for today. So I feel like that's also going to level the playing field a little bit. And something else to mention, talking about the track and the rubber that's down. We had a lot of rain last night. Yeah. So, that probably going to wash a little bit of that rubber away. But, definitely expect that rubber to come back around today.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Lap times are similar to what we saw on Thursday session around this layout. But nonetheless, like you mentioned, with the amount of rainfall that we saw, the track does dry pretty quick around here, but it does wash away the rubber. I'm still surprised, actually, that we had that black line form pretty quickly on Thursday and then into today as well, into turn number 1, or the alternate turn number 1, should I say. So that's something to note for sure. I think, like you mentioned, by the time we get to the middle of heat races, a lot of times it's going to be identical to what we saw in that Thursday practice, but we can't compare them to yesterday because it's a new layout. But nonetheless, here, let's go through your top 10 once again. It's the same as what I mentioned earlier. Ataconis, Haynes, Kolar, separated by 9 thousandths of a second. Norberg and Jones, the 2 RPG Cosmics here in the top 5, separated by 200ths of a second. Brandon Carr, McMurray, Mossman was incredibly quick yesterday, put him on pole in the X30 Pro class. He got an 8th. His speed concept racing teammate, he's looking for a little bit more pace than he saw yesterday. So far, liking this new layout, only a 10th back there in 9th. And then Massimino, last night's KA Senior Shootout winner, rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, and to go from there, we have Weinberg in 11th, Terlecki, Rogers, Fernandez, and Eggleston. Eggleston had a little bit of mishap, I believe, on the start of the X30 Senior start yesterday in the first heat. I believe we saw him take the access road on the outside of turn 1. And, from there, he was able to work his way back, get closer to that top 10. But, definitely, Nix is going to be looking to get a better run today in the second heat, Alex.
Yeah, Absolutely. So as we get our final warm-ups done and dusted, now it's time to go for some heat racing action here, Jerry, starting with our mini Swifts, some of our youngest drivers that we see. All right, we're back here for another warm-up session, I believe is what it's saying on the cards here so far for Mini Swift. This field consists of Slate Harrell, Lawrence Perriman, Marcelo Flores, Parker Stewart, Santi Orioli, Isaac Carvalho, Dutch Westbrook, Jaden Francisco, Wynn Gottschalk, Zane Burgess, Jack Katowski, Sterling Mulata, Zev Gottschalk, Axel Garcia, Camden Clay, and Camila Canache. We saw a pretty eventful, I'd say, the Microswift class, pretty eventful shootout last night in the pouring wet weather there, and a pretty fun layout. I'd say the super speedway style layout. We saw Burgess go after it himself, and Wynn Gottschalk going after it all throughout that race. Gottschalk unfortunately spinning around, trying to get around Burgess in the final couple of laps. So Zane Burgess walks away $1,000 richer than he did entering this event on Thursday. So congratulations to the Jamaican sensation there, Zane Burgess, for that incredible victory. He's had a pretty rough, I'd say, start to the weekend here, Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little rough coming in. We know he's been so dominant over the course of this year. And anytime you look at the screen, Burgess is at the front. And we had our KC intern Sarah Bradley interview him yesterday, and he wasn't really a man of many words, Alex. I mean, he was just the goal was to win, and he went out and did just that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to say apologies there. We had the graphic for the Micro Swift drivers, but this is in fact the Mini Swift, so still some of our youngest stars, but a little bit older than what we'll see the 7 to 10-year-olds go out there and do later today for the heat races. So still another warm-up session underway here. That's one of the RPM boys. That's Parker Ives. He's had such an incredible Mini Swift campaign so far this year. He's been one of the drivers to beat, if not the driver to beat, usually whenever we go out to the racetrack, especially here on Trackhouse Motorplex.
Yeah, Parker has really been dominant, and especially when we come here, and I believe RPM at a coaching camp here a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure Parker was there, but Parker has been really dominant here, and he's always the kid at the front.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a couple other drivers to mention. Holden Myers, another local around this place, Timmy Tech Kart driver. He and Cade Wolf right now so far top of the boards in warm-up session. Still 4 minutes to go, but for Timmy Tech and Kart, 1-2 so far in warm-up is something you always want to see. Parker Ives fourth right now. Looking for that on the order. We saw Ashton Woon had a pretty strong start to the year. He's one of the main contenders in the United States Pro Kart Series Championship whenever we get to round that out over at Newcastle Motorsports Park in a couple of weeks' time. We see Nico Katowski as well running out your top 5 so far. Further down the order, Josh Bergman, unfortunately, was in the top 5 in that first heat race, got shuffled back right before that scary red flag incident that halted that race, so he finished outside the top 10 in that one. He's had a slow start to the year, but once he figured it out aboard that Mini Swift package for TKG and Kart Republic, he got his first unofficial victory at MCC. It got taken away by a post-race penalty, but now that he knows what it feels like to run at the front and finish at the front, he's hungry for wins. Every time I speak to him, that driver only wants to finish on the top step of the podium. Every other step doesn't matter.
Yeah, and let's talk about another driver here. Royce Vega, currently P12 as he just crossed the line with a 52.593. Currently about 6/10 off the lead. But to talk about Royce a little bit, Alex, Royce was able to snag that heat race win yesterday. So, he's looking good, going towards that main event starting position on Sunday. So good to see for Royce on his Bennett Kart. And someone else a little further down the order here is, like you said, Josh Bergman, P11 right now. Marco Samet had a pretty solid day yesterday. The 175 BJR LN Kart. Currently 4/10 off Holden Myers, who is still currently P1. And Park arrives on your screen, Alex. Right behind him, Holden Myers, and Callan Berghofer and Nicholas Mose, I believe, behind him on the CRG.
Yeah, definitely. 2 minutes to go in warm-up session. Let's talk about a little bit more of the results yesterday from that first heat race. This is on the alternate layout. This was on a 6-lap heat race. Like I said earlier, there was a red flag in the event. They cut that race short because it had just reached halfway in the book. So Royce Vega was able to get that win on the Bennett, like you mentioned. Cade Wolf, P2. Your top three was Nico Kwiatkowski there in third. And then further back, we saw the likes of Kason Hodge, and then we saw Parker Ives in that 5th spot there. The purple driver, the fastest one, was Holden Myers. But like I mentioned with Bergman finishing outside the top 10, we saw Mancha in that 10th spot. Maxwell for the SLA crew, he's had a pretty strong year in terms of pace. I think the luck hasn't been there more than anything from him whenever he goes out to the national events. But we know he's a good driver. We know how fast he can be. And I think now a top 10 here in Mini Swift for the IAME Grands for the first heat race yesterday, it's going to give him a bunch of confidence heading into the heats later today. We see Ben Gleberman was your 12th place driver in that heat race. He's somebody that's really found some pace this year, been really strong at the national events that he's gone to, strong on the regional level as well. So good run for him as well. Further down, a couple of drivers to mention that maybe didn't have the race that they would have liked. Simon Jack Klein being one of them down there in 17th place, while Isaac Payne in 15th. So look for those two to make up some moves later on today. Yeah,
and to build off of that, someone I want to give some props to, Alex, Kason Hodge, with the P4 finish yesterday in our first Mini Swift heat. I've seen on social media, Kason has been doing some coaching with, I believe, Steven Eisert, at their local track out there. And definitely want to, work off of that for Kason, try to get into that top 5 again for that second heat. And, I believe also that third heat today, so, he can have a good starting position for that feature.
Yeah, exactly. Like you mentioned, Kason Hodge, very impressive in that heat race. Looking back at the live timing right now for the warm-ups, it's still Timmy Tech and Comcart 1 and 2. Holden Myers, Cade Wolf, as the time continues to tick down. 5 seconds left in the warm-up session. Third place is still Nicholas Mose there, so not a whole lot of shuffling here in overall lap time. Because again, you're just testing for the heat races. You're probably testing your long-run pace more than you are your outright speed. Because at this point, it doesn't really matter where you can't qualify anymore, right? You've already set the grid for heat 2 and heat number 3. So for these drivers now, it's really just figuring out if your piece is good enough around this track. Figuring out, okay, this is the setup they ran on Thursday. Is this setup good now on Saturday? Like you mentioned, with all the rain that came on. Looking at the racetrack, I think a lot of that rubber has washed away. It's going to come back naturally as the tires get up the temperature, as the track's up the temperature, and as they start to continue to lay rubber down, especially when we get to the X30 classes and just the senior classes as a whole. But looking at the majority of this racetrack, some of that rubber has been washed away for sure.
Yeah, and to build off of that, it rained pretty hard last night. It stormed for a while, and we had that slight delay that put us behind schedule a little bit. But just looking at, even right here, Alex, you can see on the inside how dirty it is. Now that we have this alternate layout today, the first 2 corners are now right behind that flagman, and double apex right-hander, and then leading into 3. But yeah, it's definitely not the same track they were on Thursday, and all these kids are going to have to adapt to that.
Interesting point you make there as we get the final results for this Mini Swift warm-up. Ashton Woon and Cam Johnson put together their best laps on the final lap of warm-up. So Super Tune and Maryland go P1. Then it's Franklin and the Maryland boys second. Then it's Cade Wolf. Then it's Maxwell Mancha puts himself fourth. Nico Kwiatkowski, Holden Myers, Bryson Scales, Marco Samet. Driver we haven't spoken about much this weekend, but he's somebody that we always expect at the front when it comes time to feature racing later on this weekend. Ben Gleberman, Royce Vega, your winner in yesterday's first heat race, down in 10th. He needs to find 6/10 of a second around this alternate layout, but again, you never really know what they're testing. We mentioned earlier, we saw Cade Wolf, we saw Holden Myers going top of the board for most of that session, and then everybody set their best laps seemingly on that final couple of runs around this racetrack. So again, could be testing, you know, short run pace. Most of them probably testing their long run pace and where they feel like they can, you know, improve. I want to mention again, you see the sand on the inside, you see the dirt on the inside of the racetrack.
Yeah.
This is not a big passing opportunity because it's following immediately after the final corner, but it's something that you could dive down the inside if the opportunity presents itself. But like you mentioned, with 2 new corners around this place that we don't see very often because it's an alternate layout, one, it's dirty in general on the racing line, and then offline, it's going to be pretty tough to keep your car under control.
Yeah, and you know, to talk about, you know, this new layout, I'm really excited for this, Alex, because you know, obviously we're going to have the alternate, you know, the normal start. We're still going to go all the way down the front straight. And, you know, from there we're going to have the 2 right-hand hairpins, and then the left-hand hairpin 3 after, and then little slight kink 4, and then double apex 5, 6, 7, and then 8 down the back straight, the bowl. Definitely going to be a lot more technical today, and I'm really excited to watch it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, while we get our warm-ups done and dusted, we're going to take a quick break here, Jerry, and then we'll come back with our heat racing action to start the day. Welcome back here to the X30 Junior warm-up session here underway before we get ready for our heat racing action. We're looking at Max Weiland right now. He was one of your winners in the KA Junior heat races yesterday, but next X30 Junior, it was Enzo Vidmontien taking the heat race victory so far. So that's one of the books for Enzo there. Davin Roberts, Vanchev, that was your top 3. Then it was Max Weiland. Speaking of Max Weiland, we saw the KA Junior shootout last night. We saw the heartbreak for the Magic Boys. He led all but the last 3 corners of that shootout race to win $1,000, but it was actually Race Lab and TB that stole it from him in the final couple of corners there. We saw a bit of argy-bargy, but that's expected when wet weather comes into the mix there. Some drivers have to use a little bit of, chess maneuvers to get around drivers, and I think that's what we saw Ty Fisher do. But on one end, we saw elation, and then we saw heartbreak for the Magic Boys as well. But confidence for sure heading into today with Max Weiland getting a victory in the KA Junior class and being top 5 in X30 Junior. This has been, I think, his breakout year. He's been pretty strong throughout his junior career and even when he was younger. But this year, there's a new level of confidence in Max, and I think it's showing so far this year.
Yeah, Alex, and to grab that heat race win for Mad Max Weiland, it's a lot of confidence. And next time you go to that grid, after you grab the heat win, you're like, okay, I got the game plan. This is what I got to do. And you've already proven to yourself that you can go out and do it. You've proven to everyone else that you can go out and get that heat race win. It's a big confidence boost, and it's good to see for Mad Max Weiland on that Magic Kart.
Yeah, now on our screen we have Alexander Vanchev. And speaking of confidence, I mean, that was another driver that I think has really figured things out, right? He leads so far in the warm-up session. He was top 3 yesterday in that heat race, 3rd place to be exact. So a driver that moved to Sodi earlier on in the year. He struggled the first couple races, but really when it came to Dalsman for the United States Pro Kart Series for round number 3, since then he hasn't looked back. He's been quick at the Stars events, he's been quick at USPKS, been quick at the SCUSA Pro Tour as well. And here at the IAME Grand Nationals, top 3 in our heat races so far. There's a good look at the 705 machine. He's a Florida local. He does some of the club races, but now he's really moved to majority nationals. Speaking of national drivers, Enzo Vidmontien, another driver that he's been quick throughout his junior career. We saw him actually make a senior debut at the Norberg Invitational down in Orlando, and he really, made a name for himself, I'd say, down there. And then since then, this year, it's been all about Enzo Vidmontien in both KA Junior and X30 Junior. We've seen Turner Brown, Ardiles in the mix as well. They've been probably the 2 to beat, but both of them are not here this weekend. And so now I think Enzo looks at us and says, this is my chance to go out there and win this Grand National title. But there's a lot of drivers in this mix that want to take it away from him. How about Lucas Palacio, the 3rd driver on our screen right now behind the 2 RPG Cosmics? He's a driver that has really shifted his focus to European driving, but he's made his way up to the junior ranks, and not only KA, he's doing X30 Junior, and he's been a top 5, top 10 driver all weekend long against kind of veterans, I'd say, in the junior category.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a rougher run yesterday with a P7 about 6.5 seconds back from the lead group. But, a kid like Lucas, we've seen him go overseas. We've seen him drive different engine packages, different chassis. This kid, he may not be a veteran yet into the junior ranks as he is just moving up, but the kid definitely has a good head on him to work his way forward. Absolutely, and in front of him, Amador Martinez. That's a driver that, he's been quick throughout the year, but I'd say his best run so far has to be from what we saw in Dalsman. As I gotta say, did you just see the hop that front end took there? The RPG Cosmic, Amador Martinez, I think struggling a little bit with too much grip in that go-kart, because the past few corners that I've watched the 791 machine go around, it is hopping like crazy. So definitely too much grip in that go-kart right now. You see him trying to turn in early, really utilize some sort of rotation out of that go-kart. But nonetheless, Amador Martinez, his best weekend for sure has to be Dalsman, Wisconsin. That's where he really, showed what he's capable of here in this junior class, taking it to Enzo Vidmontien. Ultimately, Vidmontien was able to get around him, but nonetheless, since that race, he has not looked back. He was quick at MCC for the United States Pro Kart Series as well, and now we're to the X30 Junior class here at the IAME Grand Nationals. He's been quick. He's top 4 so far in warm-up, but it's actually his teammate, Peyton Westcott, another driver that's been pretty solid all year long whenever she comes to town for the junior events on the national scene. She tops the board to finish warm-up off here with Vanchev, Vidmontien, Martinez, Lucas Palacio, your top 5. Then Chase Gassiet-Lee got his first national race victory over at Newcastle Motorsports Park for the Stars Championship Series and the OKNJ package. But here in the X30 package, still looking for that maiden national junior victory. P6 for him, Fion Shi, Max Weiland, Nate Golseth got his first, got a major TSRS race victory a couple of weeks ago. Then it's Jose Helfin, your top 10. Yeah, Lago Lempin in P11, Davin Roberts P12 in RP OTK Kart. Ty Fisher, P13, Tristan Murphy, P14, who has been struggling a little bit this weekend, but definitely look to see the Super Tuned OTK of Tristan Murphy work his way forward in this second heat later on today. And then William Kim rounding out our field in P15.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as we get ready to finish off our final bits of warm-up, and I think it's going to be the KA 100 senior drivers, going to be the final ones to really take the racetrack here for warm-ups. And as the engines begin to get fired, we're going to take a small break and then come back to the final bit of warm-up action.
Are you ready to get behind the wheel? From Formula One to NASCAR and IndyCar, all the pros start here. For more information, check us out online at mcckarting.com or call us and go racing today.
Colin, I need a new 219 chain. I need a 77 tooth roof sprocket. I need some more chain lube, and I need it probably as soon as like tomorrow. Dude, are you even listening? Like, we need this to run this weekend.
Want anything else?
What do you mean?
I already got it in the Kart and Acceleration Kart Racing's online store, bro. All orders over $200 get free shipping.
Oh, throw in a set of tires.
Done.
Everything you need, all in one place and shipped to your door for free on orders of $200 or more. Exclusions apply. Shop akr.com.
I'm David Serra, 18-time Australian karting champion, and we're launching Kart Class. Kart Class is an advanced digital training program that suits a driver who's just starting out in the sport, all the way to the driver looking to win a national championship. In this program, you're going to be learning about how to find the ideal racing line and what an apex is, braking and throttle markers, wet weather racing lines, and how to overtake other competitors. We target how to brake in the wet weather, and we look on the mental side of kart racing as well with our mental skills coach. At the completion of this program, you'll be lighting up purple sectors in qualifying, know when to defend on the opening laps, and how to pressure your opposition into mistakes. We teach you the tools to be resilient and how to get in the right frame of mind before a race. We look to complete the whole package by getting a strong mindset, a driving style to suit all conditions, strategizing your race, and getting the last 1% from your team. We'll teach you how to win the final lap of a race, driving the wet like Max Verstappen, and creating the perfect bubble for yourself to mentally be in the zone. To find out more, click the link below.
All right, we're back here live from Trackhouse Motorplex for the fourth running of the IAME Grand Nationals here. K100 Senior taking the racetrack now for the final bit of warm-up action before we get ready to go for heat number 2 and 3 later on this afternoon. Jerry, we saw a wild KA Senior shootout last night with Paulie Massimino taking the victory. I think it's funny because we spoke to Paulie a couple of times throughout the warm-up sessions, the heat races in that shootout event. And he was like, listen, I have no shot in winning this thing. The track dried up. He went from 17th to 1st.
Yeah, I mean, we interviewed him, Alex, or you interviewed him, but, you know, Paulie had absolutely, he didn't think he could be there, you know. We talked to him, he was like, yeah, I'm just happy, I'm just going to go out and have some fun, you know, and the next thing you know, Paulie's working his way through the karts one by one, you know, then he finally gets to Dalton in the lead group, and, you know, he just got it done, and, yeah, he was really happy, and, you know, it was good to see, because Paulie wasn't very confident going in.
Yeah, for sure. Well, looking at our screen right now, one driver that's caught my eye, not only Paulie Massimino, but his teammate James Overbeck. Paulie's had a pretty solid day or weekend so far. James Overbeck has had the exact opposite. And I don't know what it is. I spoke with him yesterday, and he joked around. You know, we were doing some headshots for the drivers, and he said, listen, they told me to put the black suit on for the picture, and I feel like that gave me some bad karma, because now all of a sudden, every time he puts that thing on, besides for the podium pictures after the weekend, his weekend just seems to go south. Yeah. So he obviously was joking around with that, but James being one of the more superstitious drivers on the grid, maybe it's in the back of his mind, but I think overall, they're lacking pace, but it's a weird one for the VGR crew, because Paulie's quick, and James said, listen, the go-kart feels good. It's just one of those weekends where no matter how good it may feel, it's just not fast. It's not rolling around the racetrack like you would like it to. So hopefully, and for James's sake, this new layout change is going to really help him, you know, make some spots up, because yesterday was rough for him.
Yeah, and yesterday Overbeck was telling me that his teammate Jared Clark and, you know, Paulie were really quick, and he felt like he didn't have, you know, that last bit he needed, you know, to really run that lap time with them up at the front. But yeah, definitely James is going to be looking to, you know, find a little bit more as Paulie makes a move there on the RSC kart. But yeah, James is going to be looking for a little bit more to get up there and, you know, work with his teammates underneath that BJR Undiarc side.
Yeah, looking at our top 10 right now, it's consisted of a lot of Chad Dawkin Racing car public drivers. I'd say that team right now has been one of these standouts so far here at Grand Nationals. We see the return of Stephen Miller on board the Chad Dawkins Racing crew. Chase Buscalia as well. You know, he's been pretty solid throughout the year in KA Senior whenever he goes to the United States Pro Kart Series events. But this has been one of the strongest races I've seen from him so far. And then obviously Cameron Weinberg, he's a driver that's always in the mix as long as there's a go-kart underneath them. But that entire crew has been inside the top 10 for a majority of the weekend so far, in and out of the top 10. I think Buscalia qualified about 14th, but in his first heat finished 6th. So solid run for Chase there. So like I mentioned, 3rd and 4th so far for Chad Dawkins Racing. Stephen Miller, I think, is going to be out in that second group for KA Senior drivers. But right now, top of the board, new driver. It's TB Kart, but it's SLA karting, Dalton Haynes. Dalton Haynes, if you're not, you know, if you're wondering why we see 2 different go-karts, it's because you're accurate. He's running the SOTI kart for SLA, for X30 Pro, and then for KA Senior, he's going to put together a package for TB Kart. So he's running with the same team, 2 different go-karts. Doesn't matter, though. It's a track that he knows and loves, and you know how quick Dalton is around this place in general. So no surprise to see him top of the board so far. Still early on in this warm-up session. You see Paulie Massimino. I will say, I don't know if James's woes are, you know, fading, because so far in warm-up, Paulie started a couple car lengths behind him, and right now he's gotten around him pretty quickly. So I think for James Overbeck, he still has a little bit to find here. Overall, he's still 6th in warm-up, so pretty quick. But we'll have to see when it comes time for race pace, because we all know warm-ups, you know, you can only test so much. You don't really know how quick your thing is, your pieces, until you get to heat racing action.
Yeah, Alex, and like you said, it's, you know, obviously people are just testing things in the warm-up, you know, making sure nothing's going to fall off the kart, obviously. But yeah, to talk a little bit more about CDR, you gotta give them props. You know, obviously they picked up Stephen Miller for this weekend, and yesterday in our shootout heats, it was all CDR at the front, and you know they had a little bit of fighting with, you know, Kai Hunter, and we were expecting them to work together, but that really wasn't the case, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely right. You mentioned Kai Hunter. He's another driver that this is actually his first ever KA race. First time driving the go-kart. For a driver of his caliber, you know, back over there in England, he made his, you know, U.S. debut at the Scooter Pro Tour at MCC. He was actually able to take the victory in the X30 Pro Senior class. But this is a driver that he's known for his road tax driving, known for his X30 driving. The only thing that's close to what we have here in the States for the KA package is actually the Club 100 stuff over there in England. And he hasn't even driven that. So he actually entered this weekend blind. He said, listen, it's just another go-kart. I'm going to figure it out, and he has. I think he's been very, very quick throughout the weekend. He was a couple of, you know, incidents away, I'd say, from maybe being $4,000 richer last night in that shootout. But in the second group coming up shortly for warm-up, expect the RPG Cosmic to be fast.
Yeah, it seems like in that shootout, no one was really his friend, right? You know, we seen him get into it with, I believe, Gaffera. Was that correct?
Yes.
Gaffera? Yeah. And, you know, from there, it was really tough. You know, no one would really help him. He didn't really have much help from Hayden. You know, eventually, I believe in the final, he did hook up with Hayden. But, you know, at that point, you know, they were already so far back. They couldn't really get up to that lead group. But, yeah, yesterday in our KA heat races, we had 2 CDR wins. We had Cameron Weinberg taking the first heat, and then Caleb Gaffera taking the second heat. And then, yeah, talking a little bit about our shootout heats, Gaffera took the first heat, and then Phillips walked away with the second heat. And then, yeah, Paulie with the heat race win, or not the heat race win, Paulie with the shootout win, $4,000 richer in our CNCP K100 shootout last night.
Yeah, well, as we get ready to see the checkered flag in the air for half of our KA Senior field, let's see how they stack up so far. Still a couple more drivers to take the checkered flag, but it's still Dalton, Massimino, Weinberg, Buscalia, Nix Eggleston, a driver that's running double duty, KA Senior and X30 Pro Senior. He's done a couple of senior events in the KA category, but he started the year out in junior, ran most of the Road Tax West Series. And then I asked him today, I was like, listen, you're pretty quick in the X30 Pro class. I mean, how many laps do you have in this thing? He said, listen, I showed up Thursday, and it was my first time ever driving the package. And he put it top 5 in qualifying in X30 Pro Senior. He's 5th so far in warm-up for the first half of the KA Senior boys and girls. So very impressed with what Nix Eggleston has been able to do. And one more anecdote for you guys watching back at home. I asked him, listen, how many laps do I have around this place? He said, I haven't driven here in 2 years. So very impressive to see what Eggleston has been able to do. We saw Overbeck rounding out your top 6 as well. There's a good look at Caleb Gaffera, the Chad Dawkins Racing Car Public driver. Teammates with the likes of Buscalia, Weinberg, and Stephen Miller. So Gaffera has been incredibly impressive this weekend. I think he was also a couple of, you know, moments away from maybe being $4,000 richer as well in the shootout last night. But at this point, your focus now shifts towards what can you do to win a Grand National title tomorrow. He's one of the drivers in the mix. Finn Bailiff, another Kart Public driver for TKG, on the other hand, he has had, I think, a rough start to the weekend. There's still 2 more heats, super heat, and then the feature race tomorrow for him. So a lot that he can do on a new layout. Maybe his go-kart's much faster on this alternate layout. We'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah, Alex, and talking a little bit about the TKG team, you know, I believe it was heartbreak for Drew James in the heat race. You know, definitely tough to see. So, you know, we're gonna be seeing Drew looking to work his way up here in the second heat. And yeah, right now on your screen, I believe that is Peyton Phillips on the right, Stephen Miller on the left, Emery Lida. I believe behind Emery is who is that? That might be Levy. And can we talk a little bit about Levy, Alex? I think yesterday we heard rumors that Levy was sick.
Yeah, he still is. He's actually been sick for most of the week. For people who don't know, I got a chance to talk with Ryan Perry actually yesterday. And he said before that shootout, or before the heat race, sorry, he was actually thrown up. You know, back at the trailer, just trying to get everything out of him before that heat race. He's still not feeling great, under the weather. And for those of you who do drive or have driven, you know, go-karts or race cars before, it is almost impossible to drive while not feeling well. Your mind's just not 100% in it. And in a sport where you need to go out there and give it your all, it's really rough when you have to go out there and think about the fact that, listen, I'm not feeling well, I have a fever, or whatever it may be. For Aiden Levy's case, I just know that he's not feeling well, and it's on the back of your mind. It's always lingering. And it's frustrating. So I think for Aiden Levy, I got to give him props for even being out on the racetrack right now. Hopefully, I get a chance to talk with him some point today to see kind of where that status report is on how he's feeling from yesterday to today.
Yeah, well, hopefully he's feeling a little better because, you know, from what I heard from, you know, the whole RPM 10, it definitely wasn't good for Aiden, but, you know, definitely got to give the kid props for, you know, still putting on the helmet, you know, zipping up the suit and hopping in that seat and, you know, wheeling that thing, Alex.
Absolutely. So yesterday we saw groups A versus D and B versus C, so we'll see that all flip-flopped throughout the heat races today. Heat 2 and 3 racing action going to be underway later on this afternoon. So far, the first 2 drivers to take these KA senior boys and girls to the green flag to start warm-up are the 2 Chad Dawkins Racing Kart Public drivers, Caleb Gafera, Stephen Miller as well. Miller, top 3 yesterday in that shootout race. He was maybe a couple corners away from potentially being a $4,000 gift, but still $750 paycheck. Nothing to sneeze at for a driver that, you know, doesn't get in the go-kart seat very often, especially with a team that he hasn't been with for a couple of years, or for 1 year, sorry, when he was in his junior campaign last year. Moved to Nash, back to the Chad Dawkins Racing camp, and it's been pretty solid for him so far.
Yeah, and, you know, to work, you know, behind Gafera and Miller, we have Finnegan Bailiff. You know, someone I want to chat about a little bit with is Parker DeLong. You know, he was trying to get me to take some photos for him Friday. Didn't really have time for that, but, you know, I was talking to Parker after that, and he was telling me, yeah, you know, Ruthless guys were like, hey, you want to come run with us this weekend? And he was like, well, I ain't doing anything else. You know, I might as well. And, you know, I believe, what did they have Parker's card on top of, Alex?
Yellow Fiat 500. It's actually parked outside. You can see it. If you go to the Ruthless tent, you can see that Fiat 500 that actually carried this go-kart to the racetrack on the top of that thing. So for those of you who have seen or maybe haven't seen a Fiat 500, I think this go-kart is not much smaller than that. So it's pretty impressive to see what they were able to do with that, but it's also just goes to show you don't need a big tent, big trailer to, you know, haul your go-kart out to the racetrack and be fast. As long as you have a fast driver like Parker, which yesterday he was 3rd in this heat race, you can do anything.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about, you know, setups and everything. You know, the trailer don't win the race, the driver does. And, you know, Parker has obviously been out of it for a little bit, but, you know, when you drive as much as someone like Parker did when he was in the seat consistently, you know, it's like riding a bike. You know, you just hop in the seat, get back behind the wheel, and, you know, just hit the apex.
You know, Parker still does some driving, doing the Trans Am stuff now whenever he can, doing it, some Spec Miata stuff. So he's still in the seat in the car side. On the go-kart side of things, it's a little bit different. Get a good look at Stephen Miller's go-kart. I think that side pod moving around quite
loose.
A bit there, Jerry. The right hand side pod moving around. It should stay on for him, but if there's ever a session that you want him to fall off, it's probably warm-up because then you don't get a penalty for it, unlike you would in the heat race where you have to pit. So for Stephen Miller's sake, let's see if they can get that thing tightened up for the first round of heat racing action later today. But behind Stephen Miller, that is Peyton Phillips. He got Colin Brown's helmet on. I think he's got Lucas Zabel's suit on as well. So he's got a whole bunch of different drivers on his back. But nonetheless, it's actually Peyton Phillips wheeling that RPM OTK go-kart, and he finished second yesterday in his respective heat race. He was quick in the shootout last night as well, not so quick in the rain. He said, listen, I still have to work on my rain driving. When the track started to dry up there, when it was in that transition point of rain to dry, he topped the board in that second heat race and won against a lot of talented KA seniors. So we know how good Peyton Phillips is. He's a winner in the past on the national level. So he's one driver that I expect to be in the mix, especially around the racetrack like Trackhouse.
Yeah, we've seen him win at Orlando in various series. And, you know, we've seen Peyton out at TSRS, you know, here and there. But, yeah, Peyton definitely going to be a driver to watch. He was able to grab that, I believe, second heat race win in the shootout last night with, you know, Emery and A.J. Myers fighting behind him in that respective heat race. But, yeah, currently Kai Hunter at the top right now, Caleb Guerrero behind him. Hamill, Brickley, Clark now into the 5th position on the BJR MDR OTK LM kart. And, yeah, warm-up still underway.
Yeah, looking further down the order here, we saw Peyton Phillips cross the stripe. Isaac behind him is 10th so far in warm-up. I'd say that SOTY Kart USA driver has been pretty quick throughout the year. Here's a good look at the 935 of Kai Hunter. But he has an interesting driving style, I'd say, for the KA package. Usually you want to be pretty smooth on lower horsepower machinery, but the way Kai likes to drive is pretty aggressive, I'd say. He attacks curving, he attacks corner usually early, tries to get this kart to rotate nice and easy. I mean, for a driver of his caliber, he probably hasn't figured out by now, but like I mentioned earlier, he hasn't driven this package at all before this weekend, so he's probably still learning a couple of things, which is scary for the opposition heading into today. But a new layout seems to not phase him one bit. 3/10 clear of the field right now in this session.
Yeah, and it's right here. He goes down the inside of Peyton Phillips, who we were just talking about. But yeah, Kai's definitely been impressive. But you know, it's tough when you don't have many teammates out there. You know, obviously, yeah, this is just a warm-up right now, but you know, he had it really rough with the CDR boys, and you know, I know he's has a little bit of a friendly teammate kind of with A.J. Myers. I've seen them talking a little bit, but yeah, you know, a driver like Kai currently still 3/10, you know, up on the field, you know, in front of Caleb Guerrero, who we threw side pods with yesterday. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Kai can do here in the second heat later on today.
Well, let's shift our focus back a couple of drivers. So it's Kai Hunter, then behind him is Peyton Phillips. Behind Peyton Phillips, we see the likes of Adam Brickley. This is the local to Trackhouse Motorplex. He's been pretty solid whenever he shows up to the national level, but especially around Trackhouse. There's not many drivers that probably know it better than he does. Maybe Paulie, Dalton, a couple others. But other than that, Adam Brickley has a lot of laps around this place. He seems pretty confident with his KR package so far this weekend. He was decent in the shootout last night. He was up and down. I think a bad first heat. Once the rain kind of went away, he said, listen, I'm still learning the rain stuff, but when it comes to the dry driving around this place, there's not many drivers that are faster than what Adam can do. So far, solid warm-up sessions so far for him. P4 behind him, another Trackhouse local, not in the seats as often as people may think, especially when he's, you know, got the color stuff going on. He's going to law school, hopefully. So for Emery Lida, he's a driver that made it into the KA100 Senior Shootout on the fan vote, and I don't think he disappointed one bit. He was solid in the rain session, in that intermediate sort of, you know, dry/wet weather conditions in that heat number 2. He was second for all of, you know, the last couple of corners where he got past and finished 4th, but still a solid run for Emery. And then into the main event, I think the pace maybe wasn't there as what he would have expected. The track kind of caught him out a bit. But for Emery Lida, new colors for him, rocking with the Ryan Perry Motorsports Camp this weekend. The OTK package still, you know, common for him to run, but I think it looks pretty good, the black, red, and white that he's got going on.
Yeah, definitely. That KC suit looking good there for Emery. But, you know, to go back from Emery, I believe behind him is Jared Clark in the 916 BJR MDR LN go-kart. And, yeah, I talked a little bit to Jared yesterday. He told me that he felt like he had the pace to, you know, run up front and win the heat race, but he told me he wanted to save the tires a little bit because he knew how hot it was going to be, you know, today and tomorrow. And, yeah, he definitely just wanted to keep the equipment under him. But I believe P4 yesterday for Jared Clark. And, yeah, behind him, Stephen Miller, Eli Warren, and Flagman with the checkered flag in hand.
We'll check the flag out here for our final warm-up session of the, I don't even want to say morning because it's 1:47 p.m. Eastern time here at Charlotte, Mooresville, North Carolina. So, final warm-up session of the afternoon here before we get ready for heat number 2 and heat number 3. So let's run you through your top 10 in this group, Group B for the warm-up for KA Senior. Kai Hunter, Caleb Guerrero, 3/10 back. From there, it's pretty close. Guerrero, Andrew Hamill, Brickley, Bailiff, Clark, Miller, Parker DeLong, Peyton Phillips, Steven Iser. That is your top 10. Behind him, Mateo Pappas as well, another driver that, you know, moved up from the junior to the senior ranks. He's done a couple of senior events, but now, you know, stretching his legs here a little bit, I'd say, and, you know, proving that he can hang with the senior boys on a track that he knows and has grew up on with his dad, Max Pappas, as well. So Mateo, good run for him to finish 11th. Emery Lida, Eli Warren, looking for a little bit more pace for a driver that we expect to be in the top 5, maybe top 10 in the KS senior class. So 13th in his group, looking for more. Then it's Thorpe and then Matthew Maccabee, your top 15. All right, as the Micro Swift drivers head out onto the grid here, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get ready to actually finally go heat racing action.